that the substance of this call is a core issue, although by no means the only issue raised by the whistleblower's complaint, which was shared with the committee for the first time only late yesterday. By law, the whistleblower complaint, which brought this gross misconduct to light, should have been presented to this committee weeks ago, and by you, Mr. Director, under the clear letter of the law. And yet it wasn't. Director McGuire, I was very pleased when you were named acting director. If Sue Gordon was not going to remain, I was grateful that a man of your superb military background was chosen. A Navy SEAL for 36 years and director of the National Counterterrorism Center since December 2018. Your credentials are impressive. And in the limited interactions that we have had since you became director of NCTC, you have struck me as a good and decent man, which makes your actions over the last month all the more bewildering. Why you chose not to provide the complaint to this committee as required by law. Why you chose to seek a second opinion on whether shall really means shall under the statute. Why you chose to go to a department led by a man, Bill Barr, who himself is implicated in the complaint and believes that he exists to serve the interests of the president, not the office itself, mind you, or the public interest, but the interest of the person of Donald Trump. Why you chose to allow the subject of the complaint to play a role in deciding whether Congress would ever see the complaint. Why you stood silent when an intelligence professional under your care and protection was ridiculed by the president, was accused of potentially betraying his or her country, when that whistleblower, by their very act of coming forward, has shown more dedication to country, more of an understanding of the president's oath of office than the president himself.
All right, so I stopped it a little bit early, a couple seconds early, just because that's how it goes. You heard that piece. I played almost 7 minutes of the entire opening remarks from Representative Adam Schiff. 2 things to add to that. Number 1, if they are accusing President Trump of wrongdoing, and they have to go, and I say they, Democrats, have to go down this road to put our country through this entire ordeal, and it was, in fact, wrongdoing, according to the Democrats, if they have to go down this road because they believe that he pressured, by withholding money, he pressured another foreign leader to do something in order to receive money, then that's exactly what Vice President Biden admitted to on a higher scale of dollars, $1 billion. So at the very least, if the Democrats are going to pressure Donald Trump during this impeachment or this inquiry into impeachment, then they should also come out and ask Vice President Joe Biden to step down. If both of these things are the way it's said, the way we have come to know them as of now, and they must go after President Trump for an impeachment, they need to go after former Vice President Joe Biden as well. Right is right. Another thing, did you notice what he said? If shall means shall. The city of Heber Heights has dealt with shall means shall before, haven't we? So that is where we're at. The talking heads all over the news will be talking about this, discussing this issue. I listened to Sean Hannity the other day driving down the road. Coming down the road today, I put on MSNBC to listen to what they had to say. I've read a few different articles. Washington Post, New York Times, Reason Magazine. All these, you have to read them to understand exactly where it's going. Partisan politics, ladies and gentlemen. partisan politics. Is it possible that former Vice President Joe Biden put this information out there, the information of him explaining how he was going to withhold $1 billion, and then you got 6 hours to make a decision and remove this prosecutor? Or I'm getting on that plane and that $1 billion, you're not getting it. Is it possible that he put that information out there in order to have it out there before the DNC narrows down candidates? He knows he's a front runner, but feels that, maybe his son's issues and possibly his own will be used by the DNC to lose him like they did Bernie Sanders in 2016. Is it possible that he just put this out there because he knew it was coming out anyway? He knew somebody was going to use it, so let's get ahead of this situation and then carry on. I don't know. That's just a thought I have. It's just a thought. It's not a fact. It's a question. I think it's important to question and think of things, ideas on how these politicians like to maneuver and scheme and worm their way into power. Keep an eye on that. Keep an eye on it. All right, let's get away from the national for a second. Let's talk about some things happening here in the state of Ohio, shall we? Finally, Matt. Jeez, it's been a busy week, guys. We had to talk about that. Trump, climate change. We're going to be talking about this kind of stuff a lot, I'm sure. We're in the election season, folks. It is what it is. State of Ohio, it's a great place. I love it. Buckeye State. Growing up here in Ohio, born and raised in the Brick City, one thing I did not realize until I started traveling outside, and really until I lived in Texas for 3 years, is that we have a lot of trees. No. So when I first moved back from Texas to Ohio, I realized, man, I feel a little claustrophobic with all these trees surrounding me. And it was weird. You're weird, Matt. Yes, of course I am. I'm a weirdo. I do a podcast for free. I pay for it. Anyway, yeah, I'm a fruit bat. But I love it. I love going hiking in the Taylorsville, the bike trails. I love going back, parking over off of, what is that? In Vandalia. Doggone it, I can't even think of it. The Taylorsville Dam, that park over there. So I love parking and then walking up towards Tip City and Troy, just on that bike trail. And you can walk for hours on that thing. It's awesome. I love being around all of this here in Ohio. One of the huge political topics right now in the state of Ohio is gun control. Governor Mike DeWine went out not too long ago, 6-7 weeks ago, and talked about his 17-point plan for gun control and how to reduce gun violence. We haven't heard anything after that from Governor DeWine. Hopefully he just is letting it, kind of move forward. There was a bill that went into effect in March, House Bill 228. You can read up on that, but the biggest change for all of us on House Bill 28 was the burden of shift. BuckeyeFirearms.org reports the biggest change is easily the burden shift. For decades, Ohio has been the only state which required the victim of a deadly force encounter to prove self-defense if charged. So the victim would have to prove their innocence. Now that burden has shifted to the state. The state has to prove their guilt, which is the way it should be. It's the way it should be. The standard for use of lethal force remains unchanged. Buckeye Firearms goes on to say about House Bill 228 that was passed back in March, or went into effect back in March. Preemption has been strengthened. Ohio law now mirrors federal law on the definition of a sawed-off shotgun. If not to get off subject, but if you look up the Mossberg, I think it's Shockwave, the Mossberg Shockwave, I think that's still illegal in the state of Ohio. There will now be increased penalties for straw purchases of firearms for prohibited persons. Hello. Let's not sell guns to folks who should not have them. That's House Bill 228. It's in effect. So that's good. But there are a ton of anti-gun legislation coming our way. Stuff I think we all need to look out for. In every podcast, I'm not going to talk about guns all the time. I promise you. But I think it's important. I've been wanting to talk about this for a while to let folks know, because that's been a hot topic around here, especially with the horrible massacre down at the Oregon district. That crazed lunatic. We have to talk about gun control because it's coming our way. One of those laws being, there's a bill introduced up at the State House. So in 2006, Ohio passed a law that cities could not create their own gun legislation that was any more restrictive than that was already passed by the state. There's a bill introduced at the State House that says now, if passed, cities will be able to make their own laws regarding guns. That's not going to work out too well. Not for folks who live in one city where they don't have a gun law, then they drive through another city that has that gun law and get stopped. It's not going to work. I understand cities should be able to have the right to pass certain laws and things like that, the home rule idea and everything. But when it comes to the Second Amendment, that is an inalienable right that we should have. It's secured in the Constitution. And cities should not have the right to decide who and what. I know Columbus is suing, I think, for some stuff. The city of Columbus. Because they're, it's a Democrat-run city. And Democrats speaking in general, are for gun control. So what I'll do is I'll read off some of the some of the bills that are out there at the State House currently right now with the 133rd General Assembly. House Bill 178, sponsored by Representatives Hood and Brinkman. It's a constitutional carry, meaning any law-abiding citizen, and this is a very brief description of it, go read about it, House Bill 178. Any law-abiding citizen can carry concealed. We already have the right in Ohio to carry open. Why not be able to carry concealed as well? Okay. Law-abiding citizens. House Bill 240. Mandatory safe storage of firearms. It's an anti-gun bill. Senate Bill 62, 63, 64, and 65. It's other anti-gun bills. House Bill 86 and Senate Bill 53. The description from BuckeyeFirearms.org, and I don't discriminate. I like Ohio